You need to understand when we say don't argue with crazy, it's because he's going to constantly change the rules, change the thought process to fight with you in a way that just gets him what he wants. That's the end result. Arguing with a narcissist is like arguing with a wall and trying to convince the wall that it should care about you. Imagine you're standing and you're looking at a wall and you're saying, I really wish you would give me a hug because you don't understand my needs. You don't understand how I feel. You don't understand that the stuff that I'm going through today is really hard. And I just want you to know this because I feel like if you know this, that you'd actually reach out, wall, and just give me a hug and care about me. Seems kind of silly, right? Why would you do this to a wall? It doesn't make sense. The wall isn't going to reach out and hug you or validate you or encourage you. But we do the same thing inside of narcissistic abuse. You do the same thing when you're inside a relationship with a narcissist and you're trying to get validation, you're trying to get encouragement, you're trying to just find love. And you can't do that with a person that doesn't show up caring. Narcissists do this a ton inside of arguments, trying to figure out how do they actually win at an argument. You see, for a narcissist, he doesn't really care about the end result of what is going on. He cares about just one thing, and that's typically him being right. If you had this inside of your relationship where he just wants to prove his point, he just wants to be right against all odds and against all logic, it doesn't matter. What matters is that he is right and you are wrong. This is where it gets interesting because narcissists say they want a relationship and say they want connection and say they want love, but at the end of the day, they do the exact opposite of what would actually give them what they want. Instead, they get to a place where you start arguing with them and they don't really care. So let's break it down in a couple different ways. I want to explain some of when you argue with a narcissist, what's actually going on. The main piece that the narcissist is looking for is just to be right. Okay, he wants to prove his point. He wants to be right. He wants to be validated. He wants to make sure that you're wrong and he's right. Narcissist hates to be wrong. It produces guilt. It produces shame. He doesn't know how to deal with that. He doesn't know how to process that. So as a result, there's no limits to him just saying, I'm right, you're wrong. Inside of this place, a narcissist will start to argue and fight really, really dirty. One of the ways that a narcissist will do this is getting to a place of fighting logically. Now, what I mean by this is oftentimes inside of arguments that Kayla and I would have, I would try to find little things that she had said wrong, communicated wrong, or that weren't actually factual. Oftentimes this is called a straw man tactic, where a narcissist is trying to find one thing that the person says that's wrong, and as a result, their entire argument is wrong. So say that she would say she left the store and she went to go pick something up, and then she came home and she got home at 5:55. And I would look at her and be like, no, you didn't. You definitely got home at 6. And I can prove on the camera that you got home at 6. So what were you doing? Where were you at? What was going on? And that seems like a silly example. And part of it is just used as an example. But inside of this piece, a narcissist will try to find one tiny bit of evidence that the abused communicates incorrectly. And then use that one piece of evidence to say your entire argument is incorrect. You'll see this when he accuses you of cheating on you when it's been in the past, or cheating on you when it's happened like a long time ago, or cheating on you when you were with someone before you were even with him. But he's like, oh, you cheated on me. How could you? And so you're going to see narcissists use these tiny little things. The idea was if I could prove something that she was doing that wasn't 100% factual or logical, I could take that one piece and extrapolate it onto the whole conversation and say, see, you don't know what you're talking about. See, you're a liar. See, you, and the list goes on and on. Because the idea is discredit the person so that you can win at the argument, even if the argument you're based on isn't actually factual. And this is where people get in trouble a lot of times because you as the empath or as the person that has been abused want to be able to prove that you're right. Want to be able to prove, no, I didn't cheat on you. No, this didn't happen. No, I didn't say that. When in reality, he's just projecting things onto you. He's just placing stuff on you to try to get a reaction or response out of you. And you fall prey to that. And so it continues to happen over and over. Sometimes what I'll say is don't argue with crazy. You're arguing with someone who doesn't operate the same as you. So the first problem you oftentimes have inside of arguments is that you think you can argue the same way as him, or that you think he's going to argue logically. And he's actually going to match up this piece of arguing with you in a logical way, or in a way that you are going to argue back with him. And so when you just need to understand, you are completely different, separate, opposite, completely polar opposite people in how you think, how you respond, and how you argue. So when you try to argue a certain way, thinking, well, he'll understand this because I'm telling him this, I'm explaining it, I'm giving him my emotions, my feelings, I'm talking logically, he's not going to get it. Why? Because he doesn't care. What he cares about is just his focus, his development on him. That's it. And so what you need to see is his whole focus is going to be on him, on the outcome that he wants, not on you. So when we talk through this piece of don't argue with crazy, you're trying to argue with someone who is not going to align to the same morals, the same ideas, the same concepts, the same thought patterns. They're not going to align the same. Think of it, for instance, you're sitting down and you're playing a board game and you don't understand the rules of the board game. Okay, there's multiple different house rules inside of Monopoly, right? And so you play Monopoly and someone has different house rules of, well, this is the money that we get if it's on free parking, or this is how you can swap properties, or this is, and the list goes on and on of different rules that people come up with. In college, we had like a duopoly. So what we did is we took 2 Monopoly boards and we crisscrossed them on free parking. So instead of it just being a giant square, you kind of went in almost like a figure 8, kind of walking around. And that was like a different way. We made up our own rules. And when you're inside a toxic relationship, the narcissist in your life is going to make up the rules. The thing is, he'll keep changing them on you. And so you get into this argument and you think, okay, we're arguing this direction. And then he's like, we're going to pivot over here. And you're like, wait a second, we were talking about this over here. And he's like, yeah, but because of this, this is why you're actually wrong. And so you need to understand, when we say don't argue with crazy, it's because he's going to constantly change the rules, change the thought process to fight with you in a way that just gets him what he wants. That's the end result. Now, there's all different types of pieces when we talk about arguing. We've got word salad, where he's just saying tons of stuff to try to confuse you. He's talking round in circles and circular conversations to try to just wear you down. Sometimes narcissists will continue to argue with you over and over and over just to wear you down to a place where you just say, fine, whatever, I did it. This happened. Forget this. Do what you want. Because in that moment, he's won. He's wore you down to a place where your will doesn't matter anymore. What's your opinion? What's your boundaries? What your ideas don't matter anymore. And he just gets what he wants. That's the goal, right? Like that's the whole end piece. Now, sometimes you'll even get to the place where you give in to the narcissist and he kind of recants because he feels a little bit of guilt and shame. Like, oh, I just manipulated that. It's wild, but you'll see it sometimes where you give in and then he's like, well, like we could do what you want to do. And then you do it, and then he gets mad at you. And so there's always this push and pull, this back and forth that's going to happen inside of the manipulation with a toxic person. Arguing is this giant piece that narcissists will do over and over and over again to try to establish dominance over you, to try to establish control. He wants to look like he's in control of you. So as he argues, he's going to absolutely like murder everything that he wants in reality to get what he wants. What do I mean by that? A narcissist might say he loves you and he wants a connection. But in reality, how he treats you means he's going to actually annihilate that connection and that love. Because it's not really there, because he's not willing to actually open up and be honest and vulnerable and consistent in what's actually going on. So inside of this process of arguing, you'll have this piece where the one thing that he was going to do to get what he wants is the one thing that's going to get him not what he wants. Like arguing just to win means that there's no winning for anyone. When you have a concept of, I just want to win at the argument. So when the narcissist is like, I just want to win at all costs, whether it means I need to degrade you, devalue you, rage at you, so you just pull back, you just recant your different thoughts or ideas, whatever it might be, when the end goal is just winning, it means everybody loses. Nobody wins inside of an argument with a narcissist. There's just everyone loses. And what I mean by that is he might say he wants love, connection, he wants to actually stay with you, be in a relationship, but then he doesn't prove it. He doesn't show it because he would rather win at an argument than he would establish connection with you. He'd rather establish dominance than he would be endearing. He'd rather establish his control over you than actually build connection. And so as a result, the narcissist will continue to do this over and over and over, saying one thing and then showcasing and doing the opposite. This is where we get cognitive dissonance, where he's showing up in a different way. This is where the cognitive dissonance piece will come in and you'll get so confused of what do I actually do? Do I stay? Do I go? What do I believe? And he does this oftentimes to keep you stuck. So you need to understand, when we're dealing with a toxic, narcissistic, abusive person, he's going to continue to try to figure out, how do I argue in a way that puts me as the one that wins? How do I argue in a way that's going to give me dominance? How do I argue in a way that's going to establish control over you? And he's going to do this over and over and over, trying to make sure that he's the one in charge. He's going to wear you down with circular conversations. He's going to give you so much word salad, you don't even know what you're arguing about anymore. You don't even understand what's happening. And the whole goal inside of here is that he still stays in control. So out of everything that we're talking about today, I hope you get this idea and this concept. Stop arguing with crazy, because when you argue with crazy, you don't get a good result. You don't get an end result that ends up being satisfying, happy, connected, loving. Instead, you just burn out. You get to a place where you get frustrated, where you get worn down, and you don't actually get what you want, which is healing, which is growth, which is connection, which is love with another person. Instead, you're there exasperating yourself, trying to find the confidence, the courage to be able to figure out what to do, and he's not willing to support you. If you're stuck in these type of relationships, if you're a woman trapped in a toxic relationship today and you need help breaking out or getting free, go to rawmotivationscoaching.com, because I want to provide the tools and the resources for you to liberate yourself from the toxic environment you're currently in.